Sup team, my name is Aline, my pronouns are she, her, and today I have something so important, so special, so beautiful to talk about, which is how to do intimate scenes in school and beyond in a way that is safe and joyous and creative and comfortable. Super quick warning, we are going to be using words that relate to sex, sexuality, genitalia, nakedness, and I know that that can be a little cringy, but I think it's very important to talk about because if we are performers, we are dealing with stories about, human intimacy, and a lot of the time that means physical contact, and we need to talk about it so that we have a language to discuss it safely, because you're the only person that controls your body and your boundaries, and I want to empower you. So, let's go. What is an intimacy coordinator? Well, an intimacy coordinator is someone that handles choreographing the moments in a scene that require intimacy from actors. Anything that is sexual, sexy, violent, intimate, naked, just to make sure that the actors get through this safely, soundly, and that the story gets told in the best possible way. Rather than everyone being so cringed out that they just don't talk about it and they just throw things and they just kind of do it really quickly, and then everyone is really weird and traumatized and unsafe and everything is bad. Which is what we've been doing for hundreds of years. So it's like a fight choreographer, but for sex. And the magical thing is that the field of intimacy coordinators is growing super fast. There are a lot of organizations that are training people to do this job, and HBO has promised to have an intimacy coordinator on every single one of their sets, and one day every theater company is going to have an intimacy coordinator in rehearsal, and maybe at schools we'll have them. However, in the meantime, it is very important that every person who is a performer right now has these tools available to them so that they can be safe today. I don't know about you, but I don't have time to wait for every theater class in the world to have an intimacy coordinator. Now, I know very little about this, so I had to bring in an expert. So let me slap on my headphones and call up Miss Cory B. Miss Cory, could you say hi to the good people?
Hello, hi.
Miss Cory, what is your background in this world of intimacy coordination?
I am a sex educator, coach, and I am a former theater student myself. So this is a very fun intersection for me. I got involved in sex education about 3 years ago. Right before I graduated from university, I started working for a sex researcher as her personal assistant and kind of got into the world that way. I started teaching my own workshops, seeing my own clients, started to build my practice. And now I do other things like intimacy coordination, creative consulting on different projects like film and TV and theater. I see clients one-on-one, teach workshops, and I have also recently I've been trained to be a doula. So that is kind of my next step in this lovely world of sexuality and reproduction and all of these fun things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love the fact that since you come from, the theater school experience, you know exactly the type of help that we need. So,
yes.
Thank you for being here. I would love to start by defining some terms. So, for example, what is consent?
Yes. Consent is something that is given or received, and it is a verbal, enthusiastic yes or no or maybe about a certain act or word or scene or scenario or anything. Consent lives in every single piece of life. It exists everywhere, from inside the bedroom to out, to in the workplace, to situations on public transportation. It is everywhere. Consent is everywhere. But a lot of us obviously don't know how to communicate it very well. And that is why we like to say it's like an enthusiastic, verbal yes or no, or maybe later, or something like that.
Sweet. And this is something that you talk about, and I would love to know, what to you is radical honesty?
Radical honesty is about communicating your feelings, which is something that is really hard to do for a lot of people. We're not really trained how to do it. Radical honesty is about communicating your feelings as they happen. It is about being vulnerable with another person, about being honest with them about how you're feeling, and about kind of constantly checking in about those feelings and how they change and maybe evolve over time and the time that you spend together.
And what is the practice of checking in?
Checking in is when you take a pause and you ask the person or people that you're working with how they're doing. Or you can kind of do a self check-in. You can pause and ask yourself how you were doing. There are so many different ways to check in, but it's basically just an acknowledgement that how are we still doing good? We were doing good 20 minutes ago. How are we doing now? And just kind of, it encourages and fosters an environment of kind of open and honest communication.
Totally. So it's kind of like saying consent exists in time and it can change. And just because you got one answer, 5 minutes ago doesn't mean it's going to continue.
Exactly. Yes. Consent can be revoked at any time. It might be a hell yes. And then the second that it's a no, not really, that's a change. And that's a good time to check in and say, I'm feeling something different. So yeah, all of these things kind of exist in this realm together, and it's wonderful.
Sweet. So I feel like those are going to be our big 3 tools that are going to kind of interweave in this world. Yes. Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Cool. So let's say, for the sake of conversation, that I'm a theater student in my first year and I get assigned a scene with a partner where in the script there is kind of an unspecified sexual moment. And it is important to the story. So how would I go about starting to rehearse this scene with my scene partner?
So I think the first thing you have to talk about is how do you relate to this character? Is this moment something that you've maybe experienced before, or is this something completely new? So, we have to figure out kind of where the experience level lies, what the background is of the character and everything like that, and figure out our relationship to that. And then when we figure out that and how we feel about this scene, then we can talk to another person about it, whether that's our scene partner, our professor, anyone who is kind of supporting you in this specific setting. So, we talk to your scene partner. If it's maybe a role that hits a little closer to home, it might be triggering. It'd be a really good idea to let them know that this might be something triggering for you. Or alternatively, if this is something that you've never done before, you can totally say, hey, this is something I've never done before, but I'm really excited to kind of go through this collaborative process with you and kind of figure out how we can be the best actors that we can be and figure out how to make the scene as realistic as possible. So it's really truly about communication, ongoing communication, honest communication. This is how I feel about this. This is what's on, this is what's on the table. This is what I feel comfortable with. I'm confused about this. I'm not sure about this. What do you think about this? Really making it a truly collaborative process so that you can also invite someone to then support you through what might be something daunting or scary or potentially triggering.
Totally. Something that you taught me was to use if this, then this scenarios. So
yes. Yeah, so it's I like to say it's if X, then Y scenarios. So this is a really good way that we can kind of non-verbally communicate with our partners. And we can say, especially if we know what it looks like when we're triggered or when we feel uncomfortable or when we start to shut down, if we know what that looks like, then you can say before that even happens, say, hey, okay, so I know that when I get really triggered, my eyes go to the floor. I stop making eye contact with people. I just turn very, very inward. So if that happens, that's a cue for you to maybe check in with me and pause and ask me how I'm doing. I might need to take a break, but I might just be that's how my body responds to that. So it's basically giving someone a blueprint for how you process and receive information as a person.
Totally. Which I think also as a scene partner is really helpful to hear, because then you are not just going to be trying to mind read. You just know these are very concrete things that we've set in place so I can take care of you while we do this.
Yes, exactly. It opens you up to actually receive care from this person that you may not be receiving care from in the scene that you might be doing.
Yeah. And also once you say hey, I don't like to be touched, on my legs, for example. That's a no-no for me. Then that's really freeing, because then what you know is that if I touch you on your arms, that's totally cool. And then that is the no's indicate the yeses, and that is so freeing to know.
Exactly.
Okay, so once you have established these boundaries and you know what the characters need and what you need to accomplish in the scene, how do you go about literally choreographing and staging the intimacy?
Why do we do choreography? And it's for safety, first of all. You can't put 25 people on a stage and then expect everyone to not run into each other, because it's about safety, coordinating of space, movement. It's kind of taking all of these elements in together and making sure that they flow really easily with each other. So, choreography, while it's really important to make things look spontaneous or like acting, make it look real, it's also really important to keep people safe, because we can't act if we're not safe. So sit down, read the scene by yourself first, probably, or maybe with your scene partner. Figure out what are the important moments in the scene. What kind of points are we trying to hit? Is there a kiss there? And is there a slap there? Is there, a shove there? Try to figure out what are these kind of moments that are either written in the script or are important in terms of, maybe if this is for like a class, maybe your professor is encouraging you to incorporate certain types of fight choreography in there, try to get in what is important in there. And then once you kind of develop that skeleton, that outline, then you can kind of figure out, okay, what can we put in between here? How can we move from moment A to moment B to moment C to moment D? And then in terms of figuring that part out, that is then a conversation where you can then advocate for yourself and what you are comfortable with doing, like on your own. So you can say, like, I am comfortable being kissed. I'm not comfortable being touched on my breasts, but I am comfortable being touched on my back, my shoulders. You could even like draw a diagram of like where you're comfortable being touched like on your body to make it like super, super easy for this person to, figure out like what you want. So it's basically going around saying, this is on the table, this is what's fair game. If that changes, I will let you know. Or if we try something and it doesn't work, we'll fix that and we'll workshop that. But it's, again, just kind of laying out what this like blueprint looks like for this scene, what's on the table, what's okay, what's not okay, and then how can we kind of mesh that together into this kind of dance almost. Like it all comes back, it is choreography, it is kind of like a dance. There are specific moments, figuring out how to set up these moments as well, knowing that, okay, if a slap is coming, I'm gonna put my hand on your shoulder to indicate that it's coming. There's certain things that, you can do there that are really, really small, like small enough where an audience member or a viewer won't see, but as the actor that is your cue. And that's like what I really love about kind of coordinating these things and choreographing these things.
Yeah, honestly, it overlaps so much with stage combat, and I feel like even for that we have so many steps of like, this is how you make the skeleton, then this is how you mark it, and that's like a whole other language of how you work through the scene, which is what you do like at a fight call, is you do the scene 3 times at different levels, and then by the end you're going in real time. But it's because all of the main points are super structurally sound, and it's the in-between that gets really like real. Exactly. But everyone knows what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, as someone who, if you're an actor, if you're a fight coordinator or, something like that, and if you watch really well conducted stage fights, you'll be able to see those moments where it's like, okay, like that was their point A and that was their point B. And like, you can kind of see how it flows, but then also see how great the actors work together and read each other's bodies and faces during that time. About there's so much nonverbal checking in that's going on in scenes like that a lot of people don't even realize is happening, because they've kind of developed your own code language. And it's super similar to kind of the stuff that I coach about with like BDSM in terms of having safe words or having safe signals or something like that, knowing like this is okay, this is not. It's all about again, a dance of nonverbal communication.
Totally. And I have one hot tip that I want to share, because I learned this last summer from a director, and I'm just like, I think it's so brilliant. So a good way to mark kisses when you're first starting out, or even all the way up to like, the whole time, is instead of just like going for the kiss because it's awkward and you're just like, let's just get it over with, what you could do is imagine this is one person, this is another person. You can use your hands to get really close to each other and just do like a kiss, and to use your hands to say, this is what the kiss would look like. Like if it's like making out, you would go like that, or if it's just like a peck, and it becomes like a really expressive and safe way to tell the story of the kiss, because there are a million types of kisses, without being like, oh my god, I had onions at lunch the whole time. Because our brains just get so caught up in like kisses being a lot instead of paying attention to the story. So anyway, I love the hand thing. It helps a lot, whether you're marking or all the way to like performance. Okay, Miss Cory, what if I think this is all super cringy and I just can't stop giggling and I feel so unprofessional because it's so awkward?
hold space for that. Like, you know, if you feel if you're feeling something so strongly that you are like involuntarily giggling and laughing, that is your body's way of being like, I have feelings about this and I need to get them out. So get them out, allow your space, you know, allow the time that you need to laugh about it or feel weird about it or cringe or like do whatever, you know, give space to those emotions. That's the only way we can, you know, we learn in acting school that if we suppress our emotions, they will surely come up much, much later. And that is absolutely true about these same emotions too. So allow yourself to feel them, let it pass through. It will pass, I promise. And, you know, if you're feeling that way, you may be coming from a place where you don't have certain experience. Disclose that. Like, because the worst thing you can do for yourself is feel like you're walking around with this massive secret, like you can't tell anyone that like you don't know about this thing. And it's like okay to be like, I've never done this before. I'm so down to learn, but this is super new to me, so I might need help. So ask for help. Ask, you know, for people to, you know, talk you through this or show you how something is done. Like the whole point of acting school, it's a collaborative process. You're learning from each other. You know, you're thrown into a program with all these people that have amazing talents that go beyond just acting. But, you know, people who can really, really speak from experience about certain things that maybe your characters are going through. So, you know, being able to rely on other people to help you through that is super, super important. And, you know, some people don't have the opportunity to do that. You know, either maybe they didn't go to a program or, you know, just kind of like, you know, jumped right into auditions. So it's a really great time for you to kind of let those emotions out, you know, give space for them, and then turn to your community to kind of help you through that.
Great. Okay, and then on the flip side, what if I'm showing up, but the partner that I am assigned is either not taking this seriously and being just really like flippant about it, or is straight up not listening to my boundaries? What can I do?
So if your partner is showing, you know, signs of visible discomfort and is, you know, making jokes about it or laughing about it, ask why. Ask why it's funny. You know, say like, I don't get it. And, you know, when you ask someone, especially like this happens a lot in like workplace environments, maybe with someone making, you know, sexually uncomfortable jokes in, you know, an inappropriate environment, ask someone why it's funny. And then you kind of force them to explain why it's funny. And when the punchline comes down to misogyny or racism or, you know, homophobia, whatever it is, it's like they have to admit them themselves. So that's a really great way that you can kind of get someone to realize like what they're saying and what they're doing is harmful. And then, you know, to answer your other question, if someone is just flat out disrespecting your boundaries, assert yourself, remind them. You know, some people do need to be reminded multiple times of boundaries. That's okay. Especially, you know, in acting school, when we're working with multiple people in different classes and different scenarios, it might feel overwhelming to have to remember everyone's boundaries, but it's okay. You know, ask them, reassert yourself. Maybe it might be a good time when you're rehearsing on your own at the beginning of that private rehearsal, go over your boundaries, you know, say like, you know, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is okay. It's okay to say it again. Now, if it gets to the point where someone, you know, after lots of reminders and lots of things, it's still like there's still something going on, it's totally okay to reach out to your professors. Your professors are there to support you and to help you. Like that is why we go to school. We go to school to receive support from people who've been in this industry for a long time and can give their wisdom, their protection, their advice. All of these things are what professors are supposed to do. So talk to your professor about it. It might be a conversation that is beyond you and beyond your scope, and that's okay. But knowing that you did everything you could in your own power before kind of taking it there is really great, and a really great way to kind of assert yourself and feel strong and confident in your boundaries.
Sweet. And what if I am a freshman in college and I straight up just don't have any sexual experience at all, and suddenly I have to do like a full-on sex scene and I feel very exposed that I have no idea how to even pretend to do this?
It's okay to disclose that. Now, you don't have to disclose every single, you know, experience that you've ever done. You don't have to, you know, if you're not comfortable sharing that, that's okay. You can simply say like, I don't have a lot of experience with what's going on in this scene right now. That's totally fine. But remember, the whole point of acting is to make something look real. You know, you're not being asked to do the real thing in most cases. You know, it is always about figuring out how to embody the experiences of other people and other people's experiences. It's about radical empathy and about trying to literally put yourself into the position of someone, you know, the character that you're playing. So, you know, if this is you, it's okay to not rely on sexual experiences to, you know, recreate this experience. But what experiences with intimacy have you had? Most people will have experiences with some form of intimacy, whether that is physical intimacy, whether it's emotional intimacy, or, you know, like what experiences can you pull on that you have had that maybe aren't sexual in nature, but still kind of portray that feeling that you're trying to portray in that scene. You know, so much of what I try to do in, like, for example, a BDSM setting is I try to like get someone to tell me like what they want to feel in that environment, and then I try to kind of really hone in on that feeling. So trying to identify in a scene, okay, what is the feeling, what is the emotions that we are playing around with, and when have I experienced those emotions in my past? And it doesn't have to be sexual at all. It can be, you know, strong feelings of love that you felt towards a friend, even like platonically, or a family member or something like that. You can pick out those kind of feelings and kind of apply them to these scenes without having any sexual experience at all.
Cool. And one thing that has helped me, because I was very much in this camp, you know, when I like first got to college, was a lot of the time the scenes that you are assigned are younger characters anyway, and to just say, if I'm inexperienced, they're probably inexperienced too. Especially when you're working with like period stuff, where people were like very repressed and no one talked about anything, to be like, actually, you know, unless you're playing a character that straight up, you know, does this for a living, or like is a little older, or like, you know, that has more experience, but like a lot of the time it ends up working to say my character is just as inexperienced as me, and then what that ends up doing is kind of raising the stakes because it is the first time, and that like discovery can be something that you infuse into the scene itself.
Absolutely. And I will say, like, if you're, you know, in that position of where your character maybe is a sex worker for a living, or you know, is more experienced or something, it's totally okay to like go seek out the resources you need to learn about this. You know, talk to a sex worker, talk to maybe your friend who's super sexually experienced. I like, something that I would do is like watch porn for research purposes, like see what they're doing in there. Like, you know, these people are professionals, like they literally, this is their job. So, you know, like reach out to the resources that you have available because they're super, super helpful.
The amount of times I've played a prostitute when I was like 15, you're like, oh my God, and I didn't know what I was doing.
I know, it's the calling card of the NYU. I went to NYU, so it was the calling card of the NYU grad was playing a dead or dying sex worker on television for SVU or something.
One day.
One day.
Okay, what if the scene that you get is something that depicts a very intense and not okay thing, like a full-on rape? Like, how do you handle that?